Wonderful. So I want to welcome everybody. This is our 13th session out of 16. We're really nearing the finish line here. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. Just your enthusiasm and emails asking me questions, and it's just amazing, the type of questions you ask, and it's very inspiring, very inspiring. And I tell you, this is just the beginning. Once you get your feet wet and you see how people really need this information. We are simple people. We don't have all the doctorates. It doesn't matter. As human beings, we're all in this together. And the research, all of our program, every slide, every word is based on sound research. Again, Dr. Panzer doesn't take one end or the other. He takes most peer-reviewed, commonly agreed to. That's why I've taught, like I said, I've taught in hospital settings overseas. I've taught in schools here, hospital settings here, colleges, teachers' workshops. And I've never had somebody say, oh, this is not right. This is not true. They get really excited and they want to teach this as well. They feel it really fills a lot of gaps that exist. So, Mr. Khan, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we begin? Nope. Okay, he's on the phone, obviously. Oh, there you are.
No, I'm not on the phone, not on the phone. But I was trying to finish my dinner so that I wouldn't be showing eating while I'm seeing everyone.
We know the feeling. It's like, when do we have a chance to eat? Thank goodness we turn off our cameras for a minute and take a gulp,
No, the only thing I'd like to add is basically ditto to what you said. It's such a joy to see everyone so much participating, and I want to find ways that we can support everyone get started, each in their own unique way. Being on the board of Free Teens for all those years and watching the development and my close friendship with Linda. And it's really God's power, God's work, especially during this crazy time we're living in. This is the truth that is true today in the midst of World War III and true tomorrow. So there'll be people who really recover, especially breaking down the barriers between left and right, which the communists are trying to make. It's a wonderful program to do that, because even the liberals with the material, they come forward because they have children too, and they care about the kids. So I think it has so many dimensional benefits. So thank you very much, Linda, and everyone.
Yeah, it really does have a lot of dimensional benefits. It's because I teach in very diverse school systems, and it's amazing how everybody comes together in the classroom. There's just no difference between anybody, that's willing to listen and participate. Everybody knows their ideas, their questions are well received. It's a safe place just automatically. They create the safe place themselves, and the teachers are just so relieved to see, oh my gosh, my students are really listening. They're taking notes. It's fast. I mean, the kids will tell me on the slide, no, Miss Linda, you're going too fast. I'm still writing this down. I go, okay. Good news for me. So there's a few slides that I actually make copies of, because I know they're going to want to stop me, like the difference between self-centered love and a lasting love, those two columns, those kind of things. I really want to share with everybody these things that are tried and true. And I was telling everybody, I did send a topic sheet. I split them into half sheets so that it's, it's just easier for a handout if you give somebody a half sheet. For years, we didn't know how to explain when they say, well, what do you teach? What do you do? It's just like, it's so broad, so deep, so vast. And so when I give the topics, they look at this and right away they see, oh, this is great. This is great. And I had gone through the New Jersey Department of Education, the curriculum mandates for health education for all the grades in the state of New Jersey, and we cover 85% of it. So even you can go on your own state's website, find out from the Department of Education, what are the curriculum. It's not, they don't give you a curriculum, but it's like, these are the points you have to teach in your class, you know, healthy eating, whatever. So we don't get into nutrition, but we get into all the other things, and it really gives a lot of weight. And the kids, like I said before, they'll tell the teacher, now we know why you said this, because of what we learned in the Love Smarts program. So it's it's a reality-based program that I've done in the prison settings. I've done senior citizens. Senior citizens love this. You know, they're still having relationships, and all of them have children, and they want to know how to help them with their problems. Well, this program helps them know how to actually speak in the current language about these issues. So it's fascinating. So again, I welcome everybody. And I think Carol is ready to give her program. We made a homework assignment last week. Everybody was going to our curriculum book that we usually use in the clubs, after school clubs, but it contains exercises and activities and lessons, but kind of in a deeper way that are covered in the PowerPoint presentations and along with the teacher's manual. So again, this is not a pass or a fail. It's not a grade thing. It's really to help us break through our fears, or, you know, we don't know what we're doing. I don't know, all those feelings. And yeah, so I'm gonna turn it over to Carol. She can turn on her mic and do her share screen, and let's see what she's cooked up for us this evening.
Okay, that's so reassuring that there is no grade. All right. Okay. It is 7:07, so I'll keep this to 10 minutes. All right, my topic is lesson 7, dealing with anger and other emotions. So in the teacher's manual, that would be on page 7. Okay, the reasons for choosing this topic. And I assume, Linda, you wanted to know what our personal reasons were for choosing
Just
the topic.
your personal reason why. You know, this is very casual, by the way, because you're teaching us, but you're also giving the lessons. So however you feel comfortable.
Okay, so anger is a normal human emotion. However, it can be really intense. Everyone gets angry and has a right to his or her anger. The key is managing your anger effectively. And why is that? Because we want to go in a positive direction and not a negative one. Okay, the goals and objectives that are outlined in the teacher's manual, I arranged them a little bit differently than what you will see in the manual. So the first one is to understand how people cover their emotions. Many people have an "I don't care" or "nothing bothers me" kind of attitude when something disturbing happens. So this lesson will go into that a little bit and teach the students more about that. To learn to deal with emotions honestly, and underneath angry emotions are feelings generally of relief, pleasure, trust, and love. So we kind of have to understand that sometimes the angry emotion really, if we can dig beneath that, as a result of kind of working through it, there will be relief, pleasure, trust, and love. To discuss emotional management and self-awareness. Another goal of this lesson is to understand the importance of compassion, not only for others, but for ourselves. To learn to avoid dangerous risk-taking and self-destructive behaviors. To learn how to accept differences in ideas. To learn how to assert ourselves in confident but respectful ways, which is another way of wording this in this chapter is fair fighting. So the materials that are necessary for lesson 7 can be found at lovesmarts.org. So they recommend using the slides from part 5 in the PowerPoint presentation. I received a PDF from Linda this morning. Also using the Real Deal video DVD, and the section in it that you would show your students would be warning signs of an abusive relationship. So you wouldn't show the whole DVD, you would just show that one section. And another recommended material for teaching this would be the relationship intelligence PowerPoint. Now I have a question, Linda. Is this the same PowerPoint as this PowerPoint?
Yes, the PowerPoint that we have, it's part 1, part 2, 3, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. So it's 7 different PowerPoint presentations. I gave all of them to you except the 2, 3, which is a combination blend of 2 and 3, and the number 5, which is the emotional management. So
Okay.
you would be getting the whole enchilada, and that's with the 25% off. Normally it's $199.
Okay, so this is a little redundant here. I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Okay. All right. So this material right here, as far as the goals and objectives and materials that you need, that would be in the teacher's manual. So the other handout that we got was the Relationship Intelligence Student Journal, a course in character and relationships. It's the 13th edition, 2018, and that came in PDF. Okay, so in that particular handout, lesson 7 is on pages 61 to 68. So this would be more of the material that you would be teaching, as well as it would have. So in this journal, it has an introduction. After the introduction, there are questions for reflection. And basically, and I just have one question, Linda. I felt that these questions for reflection, it's basically, asking questions and then having the students write out their answers. Is this for all age groups?
Typically, this curriculum book is, even though some of them, like goal setting, we touch with 6th graders, it's really high school. It's more high school and college age.
Right, because it was almost kind of like writing an essay. So this would be the question, and then they just had like a blank half sheet of paper where they had to write out the answer. So
I could imagine a 7th grader doing this,
right,
in all honesty, because they
right.
face this, but yeah.
But not for any younger
Not 6.
programming, right? And then, so this particular chapter is broken down into different sections. So you have the introduction, and after the introduction, there are questions for reflection. Then there is another section which is called emotional management, risk-taking, and decision-making. And again, after you discuss this section, there are more questions for reflection that the students can answer. And then the last section is called fair fighting activities. Now with this one, it wasn't a reflection, it was actually an activity. So after you go through the material on fair fighting, some of the recommended activities for this section, for example, make pairs and pretend you are a couple or a parent and a child having a disagreement. First play act dirty fighting and then rehearse fair fighting. And the other suggestion was role-playing scenario. And then it was referring to this activity 5 on page 30 in the teacher's manual.
If I could just interject something. We did something give and take between 2 teenagers about Titanic, about they wanted to watch it, but there's sex scenes. So, and then, they're arguing with their parent.
Oh, I see.
And so then more current in the urban setting is the movie called Baby Boy with Tyrese. And so I developed one with that because the kids could relate to it more, but it's really good. It's conflict resolution between parent and child.
I really like the role playing for actually really practicing these skills. The reflection would just be to get your students to start thinking about what their feelings are about anger, situations they've been in, this sort of thing. Okay.
Putting words on their feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to, the entire section, you can see it's 11 pages, and this is kind of a condensed version. So I'm just going to take a segment of it because I have 2 minutes. Okay, so I'll read this. Ignoring your feelings of anger, fear, or pain doesn't make them go away. Sooner or later, they will erupt and maybe destroy a relationship or make us sick trying to keep them inside. We have to find a way to do something positive about them. How can we go through feelings of anger, fear, and pain in the least destructive ways so that we can get to the feelings of relief, trust, pleasure, and love? Okay, it goes on. Dr. Gordon says that the best way to learn to communicate our anger, fear, and pain without letting them get out of control, kind of like releasing steam from a volcano. So the volcano doesn't blow up all at once. And, or you could think of a pressure cooker. You don't want to explode. Okay, actually, anger at another person can be good if it makes us aware of real problems we're having with that person. By expressing our anger constructively, we can use anger to get the other person's attention and to influence that person to work with us to solve the problem. If anger can be good or bad, how can we learn to harness its energy instead of just blowing up? First, Dr. Gordon says we have to learn about the destructive ways we fight, the ways that are unfair and only make things worse. This destructive way of fighting can be called dirty fighting. So here it then goes into what is dirty fighting. Okay, so I'm running out of time a little bit, but I will just.
It's okay. You can go over. It's okay.
Mind reading, where one person assumes he or she knows what the other person is thinking, instead of asking what that person thinks or means by his or her actions or words. Bringing up past hurts and offenses instead of focusing on the problem at hand. This is a big one for me. Hint, interrupting each other so that no one feels heard by the other and no communication takes place. And then sometimes it can degenerate into accusations, and it kind of escalates from there because people are getting frustrated. Name calling. I generally don't do that one, but I have heard people use a lot of name calling. You're a liar. Bullying. Okay, that's huge. And blaming. Instead of accepting responsibility for your portion of the situation, you're putting the blame on someone else or outside of yourself and not really taking any responsibility. Accusing, and you did that on purpose to hurt me. Ridiculing, taunting, put downs. So you can see how devastating all of these are, when we have experienced it, but especially for a child. Nagging, okay, being sarcastic, threatening, exaggerating, stonewalling. So these would be all of the negative ways that we interact, otherwise called dirty fighting. Okay, so here we have a picture. And as you see, they are not in a good mood. He's kind of sitting, turned away from her. She's kind of like with her head down, and there's a big space in between them. So obviously there is a problem. We assume they're a husband and wife. Okay, so I'll just quickly go through questions for reflection. So how a student may answer some of these questions. Okay, think of the last argument you had. Okay. So probably the last argument I had was while deciding on 2 Kings quotes. We had all these different quotes, and then we had a team, and we had to discuss which ones we liked and which ones we felt should be omitted. So it wasn't an outright big argument, but it was a disagreement. Okay, did I do any of the dirty fighting that's listed above? I said yes. And which ones? Okay, the big ones for me, and this was a very mild argument, but interrupting. And I think interrupting just comes into play, especially when you don't feel the other person hears you, or maybe it's an emotional kind of trigger, and it just causes you to kind of just lose control a little bit. So interrupting. Another way of wording that is called walking over each other. And I've noticed this because I film couples as they're being interviewed. And when they're being interviewed, many times, some couples, they are always walking all over each other. So one example might be the wife is answering for the husband. Okay, so interrupting.
Women tend to be more verbal, so it's kind of not fair.
Right, right. But also it's a little disrespectful.
Mhm.
Okay, so what was the response of the other person? Okay, so the other person just happened to be the opposite sex. So you got this subject object thing going on. This is between us, right? Okay, so this person was just like trying to convince me that they were right, and not really listening to my point of view or reflecting on my opinion on the subject, but kind of like insisting, no, I've got to accept this is the way it's got to be, right? So that was a little frustrating. Okay, so which of these do I do the most often? I'd probably say I mind read a lot. I assume because I'm the way that I am, I assume other people are the same way. And so many times I'm always assuming, I'm not really asking, well, what do you think about it? Or,
Mm.
So I can get caught into this mind reading kind of thing. And that is not a good thing. The other thing is the interrupting. And then no one really feels that they were heard. Okay, here again, it asks you again. So it's really asking the student to really kind of think about what their style of using, dirty fighting is, because it repeats itself again. And then how did you react? Which really gets into, what are your feelings in that kind of situation? So you kind of are getting the student to think about a situation and then attach it to, well, how did you feel? Which I think is really good. And I just wrote, I felt anger, and I don't know if it was really pain, but I felt it wasn't a good feeling because I felt I wasn't being understood. And now these were not used in that situation, but the dirty fighting that bothers me the most, and why? Because in my past, I've had people doing these things. And I'm going to tell you, it is extremely frustrating, especially when somebody's got a style of constantly blaming, and they just don't recognize it. Or especially devastating is I never experienced bullying until a woman in her 50s started bullying me. And I'm going to tell you, that was absolutely horrible. I guess I was really fortunate that I was not bullied like that as a child, but
Yeah.
that is just devastating. So you can see it's quite a long, it really goes into a lot of material. How you do it in 45 to 60 minutes is great. I would think that it would kind of depend on your audience and how much you would really feel that you need to pay attention to this segment. There's a lot of material. But even if the students just get a small portion and they just walk away with a few things, I think that's really good.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Very good. Excellent.
And over.
So as far as timing is really important because you can kill the entire presentation. The bell rings and you're in the middle of a sentence. That should never, ever happen. So, if they say you have 45 minutes, you're going to shave that. You're going to give assignments and then they'll turn it into their teacher tomorrow or whenever, next week, whatever, check with the teacher. And so that's what you would do. And then if they're giving you 2, you can do the same thing in 2 things. Do part of it and then give an assignment that you'll review a little bit, maybe 5 minutes, have 2 people just answer some questions. It was great what you said. Well, how do you think about it? Because I think a lot of people are worried about, more with teenagers than adults even, but it can be used for both. Somebody's asking me a question. Oh my God, I don't have the answer. First of all, you don't have to have every answer. Second of all, well, what do you think about that? Just exactly what you said. How do you feel about that? If it's one of those feeling questions, it's really good to try to get people to think, but sometimes people can, females especially, their language is a lot about feelings. With men, you don't say, how do you feel about that? It's, and I call boys men, okay? It's better to say, what do you think about that? Or what was your experience? Something very concrete. And always be sure that you're giving them a lot of respect. I just want to mention something. A great movie I watched was Antoine Fisher. It's a true movie. And I actually met the guy whose life it was, actor. And I know the actor who played it. I know his background. He knew Antoine Fisher. Denzel Washington played the psychologist in it, in the Navy. And this might happen to you. Maybe somebody will say, but I argue all the time. I have to yell and scream. And then you can ask, well, why is that? Well, that's the only way they learn. And that's what Antoine Fisher, he used to get in a lot of fights. He says, that's the only way some people learn. And so Denzel just asked him very calmly, well, how's that working out for you? And Antoine just looked at him like the deer in the headlights. Yeah, it's not working so good for me. So it started his process to think about, and he had a lot of reasons for being in fights. He was abused his whole life as a child and a lot of things, and he just became an incredibly wonderful person. So how's that working out for you? Let them find their own answers, and they'll find out they're fighting a lot. So this is such a great topic that a lot of people have, but don't you feel more confident? You do have background, but don't you feel more confident to, and it's in a non-obtrusive way. It doesn't pin people down. Well, what do you think about this? It's like, your feelings matter. How did you deal with this? Or when somebody did this, how did you feel? How did you react? How could you have done it differently? Because all of us are thinking, oh man, I have to prepare ahead of time if I'm going to do this. The whole point is, think about the long-term issue. Do I want a good outcome or a bad one? If I want a bad one, immediately I want to be gratified with my anger. And guess what? I'm not going to feel good about it, But if I did it long-term, it's wrenching my gut out. But guess what? I feel better. And I actually have a relationship with this person now. They feel understood and I feel understood, or at least respected, something like that. So that was great. So you did it differently than what I thought. I thought you would just give the lesson as if we're just students. I love the spin that you did. I thought that was perfect because you took us on the journey with it. And as independent educators, we're putting ourselves in that situation, how we would deal with it. So I thought it was wonderful. Does anybody have any comments they'd like to give or questions?
Just one slight comment. When you said you said the men, and you said, well, they're boys, but I treat them like men. Simple statement, but very significant when you're working with high school young men. And they, that way you disarm them. They don't fight you because you had that kind of respect. So that would be something we can all pick up.
Incredible. Especially my little gangster wannabes, I give them eye contact. My voice is respectful under all circumstances. And I've been in classes, we'd start with a fist fight and the Pledge of Allegiance every day. I'd have to dive for my equipment so they didn't knock it on the ground. I never worried about them hurting me, but that was the arena that I started on. But yeah, it's very important. And the females, you make an emotional, with men, if you're male and you have to be careful with the girls, especially in the urban, because they got daddy issues. And you have to be like a male authority, like an uncle, teacher. You have to be totally professional. You don't hug, things like this. If a female comes to hug you, you stand very still with your arms at your side, you smile, but they, it's very important to protect them in that way. And so it's, yeah, I love this. It was great. It was, I learned a lot of things that I want to try out. Anybody else? Because now we're going to have Vicky. Are you ready, Vicky? Can you, Bergie, can you do you need sharing? Do you need to share anything on a slide, or you want to just speak to us?
I tell you, I'm impressed with Carol because I do not know anything about computers. I wish I did.
That's okay. You've got you.
She was great. So I'll just do the best I can do, and I hope I can learn something. So what I did was part 2. It's on page 35, personal relationship and leadership. And lesson 4, which is on page 37, understanding your core value. The reason why I decided to do this is because I've always felt that if you don't have your own value or self-worth, whether you're young or old, it is really hard to know how to value others. You have to start with yourself. I like to look up meanings, so I looked up core, and the central or most important part of something. And the word value is the worth, importance, or usefulness of something, principles, standards of behavior. And core values are ethics that guide our behaviors and our actions. So I'm here, my name's Vic, and I'm just here to try to have a deeper understanding of core value itself. One of the questions is, do you know your life is of value? And so is your future. And if you don't value your life, why should others? The learning objectives are for students to understand that they have a public self, which is, out there for people to see, but you also have a deeper self, your core self, private thoughts and feelings. And personal leadership is equal to success in life and relationships. It's also equal to self-worth. So in order to understand core identity, sometimes we worry so much about what others think of us. And most of the time, they're not thinking of what you're thinking at all. They sometimes don't care, but we do. So I want to share the story about Nelson Mandela. He was in prison for 26 years. The main reason is because he had principles, he knew his core value, and he was fighting for freedom for his people. That's an important thing, and it was very important to him for him to spend 26 years in prison. They beat him, they treated him horribly, abused him, but from what was told out of his own core value, he respected others, he was concerned for his jailers, and he just knew his core value. What I want to do now is, the lady that I did is an 18-year-old. So I'm just sharing this woman's thoughts that I put down on paper about her and her life. So one of the things that she was supposed to tell me and do was, if she was going to be on an airplane, and the airplane up above her, in the sky, was only had limited fuel, And then the pilot says to everyone, you know, this plane's going to crash in 10 minutes. That's it. And I don't think we're going to make it. What did she, I was asking her, what would you do? Would you write a letter? You know, something to leave behind. So for her, it was her thoughts of her family. Because a lot of times in the moments of near death, that's really what people focus on the most, is those closest to them. You know, so I'll read this letter that I got from her. Here it is. Okay, so this is her letter. First of all, to my family, I love each of you. I wish I had been a better daughter and sister. My life has been a big mess, full of evil and satanic situations. Our family was a mess, but I understood why, especially when the doctor damaged my brother's brain as a baby, and all of y'all had to go through that. But please forgive me of my failures. I have loved each one of you, and I've not always been the way I should be, but only God knows if I could ever be forgiven. Much love. Okay, and so that is on that one. And then the next thing that she was to do was a family tree, which would sort of describe, you know, her basically parents, grandparents, siblings, and also herself, the positive sides, and then the not so positive side, the negative sides. So, and I wish I had a way to put this on the camera, but anyway, I don't even know if you can see it. It's just a little tree.
We can see it.
You can see it. Oh, good. So I'm just going to read what she put down. My family tree. Dad. He was in the Navy, hardworking and funny. That's the positive. On the other side, alcoholic, verbal abuser, never went to church, never did discipline us. Mom had cancer. She was loving and busy and 3 kids. On the other side, didn't have time to listen, never did discipline us, went to church, but she just didn't seem to have that deep relationship with her creator. And on Dad's side, the grandparents, his father was a provider, but he was also quite the abuser, physically abusing all the kids and the wife. The mother, his dad's mother, was afraid, very fearful, but she was also very protective of all the kids. And then on the mother's side, the male, on the male side, he worked hard, but he was also an alcoholic. And the mother had 16 children. She was quiet and very loving, but she never did, way she put it, she never did discipline that much. I guess back then the older ones sort of helped out with the younger ones. The oldest brother was developmentally disabled. He had brain damage at birth and was very loving and wise, but he also had his temper moments. And then the other brother was very smart, very intelligent, could be a little prideful, and we felt like that was Mom's favorite. For myself, she wrote, I think I'm caring. I try to encourage others. I'm funny. I always loved my grandmothers, but on the bad flip side, I was raped. There were drugs, drug overdose, going from man to man, satanic worship, and suicide attempt. So that's the family tree there that she put down. And so I asked her, you know, what is it she sort of learned from her family. And she put down, well, none of us are perfect. I would like to be a better person and eventually marry and have children. I really hope to be more like my grandmothers who had a very strong faith and they persevered. I wish my family had been closer. I wish my parents, I thought this was interesting, had asked me where I was going and who I was with, but they never did. It's almost like they didn't care. My greatest fear was dying alone. I have 5 wishes. I wish that my family would be honest with me and speak truth, even if I don't want to hear it. And show me how to love others and also how to love myself, how to not hate myself. I'd like to learn how to listen, to be honest, loving, and caring with them. So that was some of her thoughts on the family tree. And then in one of the activities, it said to do a relationship bank account box. Well, she had this little box. I don't know if you can see that. It's just a tiny little box. It's got fish on it. But inside the box, there's paper, little pieces of paper. And so what she would do, and it normally would be to write on the paper her deposits and her withdrawals. And so I was checking to see what some of her deposits would be. Papers here. So the good deposits, and she agreed, you want to have more deposits than you would withdrawals, would be like to seek to understand, to keep promises, honesty, kindness, clarify expectations, apologize to others, and receive feedback or listen, and to forgive. The bad withdrawals were things like always wanting to be heard first, breaking promises, manipulating others, being unkind, disloyal, conceited, arrogance, not listening, holding grudges for a long time, and pride. And then it was discussed about the word pride because the very middle of that word starts with an I. So that fits that quite
What
well.
word started with an I?
The middle letter of pride.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
How old is she?
18.
Wow.
So
She's learned a lot. You have to tell her I said she has learned a lot. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Tell you what, life just continues to teach, doesn't it? And you'll have to forgive me. I'm looking at my notes here and making sure.
Doing fine.
Yeah. So
You could start your own podcast.
So on that, after we did that, it was just talked about how, even for me, to take the time for at least a week and to write down, make my own deposit box and to write down my thoughts on what I need to deposit into that concerning my family and friends. And then when in my withdrawals, to know what it is I'm doing that is just putting a lot of pain in other people's lives that I shouldn't be doing. So on the other thing about families I wanted to share was that we can learn a lot about ourselves by understanding the families we grew up in. We can appreciate the sacrifices of those who came before us and build on their strengths. I think for her, the main thing was with the core values, not really thinking about what that meant, and then learning a little bit more about how valuable she is. And for her, it's been a long struggle of self-abuse and unworthiness and self-loathe. So it's, to me, I thought that was great, for her to share what she shared. And the last thing I wanted to read is, this was by Dr. Panzer. The concept of freedom is central to relationship intelligence. We have no control over our world, our communities, and others, and how they treat us. But we are free to choose our response to the actions of others.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow. I'm impressed. I could just see you doing your own podcast, Vicki.
I wish, like I said, with Carol, so I wish I had her knowledge to put things up, but I
Well,
don't.
with the program, honestly, you'll have all the basic knowledge you need to have a conversation and answers, and it's just amazing. And to use that example, and you have the little box and everything, the relationship deposits and withdrawals is such a big hidden, plain in sight secret. You either making deposits or you're doing withdrawals, and people don't realize it. So it's fascinating. And I really respect, because I know that this is so out of your comfort zone, and you two just jumped in there. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Don't all jump at once. I was like you, I didn't know what core values was. I didn't know what core was. I had to look up all this stuff too, like for somebody like Dr. Panzer, of course, he knows this thing, David Kahn, he knows these things. Even the word sincere, way back when in my 20s, I didn't know, I know sincere, I don't know what it means, so to understand that, how do I know what I have? And like, even with Mandela, because I read some books with him in it, and he felt they could beat his body, but they could never take away his value.
Yeah.
Or his core values. How, to me, core values is also how I treat other people, but he said nobody can take away his value. He could give away his value, like your friend, when she said drug abuse, and all, she gave away her value, which is sad, because that makes her not like people even more. So that was really great. And then, like you said, if you don't value your own life, how can you value the life of other people? That was really amazing. So, so I'm really, really impressed with all that. David?
Yeah, I think this shows us that you can actually teach at a higher level. You can teach to college students, married couples.
Mhm.
There's a lot of content that could be used. I don't know if Gideon would like to share what his thought is, if he's available, but I think even college students could really respond to it because it's so practical and real.
Yeah, I think especially college students, because they don't have the big baggage of regrets and mistakes that other people do. So they can retrain. Also, the fact they're in college, it means they are thinking about their future. They're trying to invest in it, and they want to be happy. But they're in these dead-end relationships and bed hopping and everything else. So it's a huge problem. But it's it is so versatile. And all you do is you tweak it towards your audience. Like when I'm doing drug rehab, drug court clients, then I, interject, some of their recovery language in there. If it's married, we don't have to be counselors or degrees. We're just trying to help people find their own answers. That's all. And we're showing what research shows about relationships, and talk about core values. When we hear the research, it hits our original mind. It's amazing. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Just a little tweak here and there, and know your audience, who's going to be there, and you gear it towards there. But no, I'm really very impressed with you, Vicki, both of you. It's yeah, really great. Does anybody want to make a stab at it next week? Don't all jump at once. It's okay if you don't, but can you see the value of just presenting? You know, how you would present this in a class or how you would do a training. I felt Carol's was kind of like a training, like if she was training educators or teachers. And then Vicky, again, I could just see you doing your own podcast for a first time, Vicky, because I know that you get nervous. You haven't had the public speaking experiences that others have had. But really, the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel. And you really have a wonderful presence. I know you can't see yourself the way we see you, but you really have a wonderful presence, and it's timeless. Don't listen to this stuff. Oh, don't you have younger people to do this? No, I had this one girl, beautiful African-American girl, 21 years old. And you know what she was told in the school, urban school, Black kids? They said, what are you going to tell me about relationships? I have 3 kids. You don't have any kids? And I'm thinking she could never get away with saying that to me, you know? And, but here this young girl didn't know what to say. And she's getting her college degree, she's getting her master's, and this other one with the 3 kids, like, really, you know? But it's timeless. We never have to feel, we're just here to help people. We're here to, you know, throw them a lifeline. They grab it or they don't grab it. Like Denzel said to Antoine, how's that working for you? He didn't say you shouldn't do this. So, yeah, so that's interesting. Anybody else have any comments they want to make? Or yes, Richiko-san.
I have a question. I'm sorry. How many people doing this program like you do?
You know, it's been given in 70 countries around the world. There are people who've received training like you, and they've trained people. So I really have no idea, but I know it's been given in 28 states. And without grants, I think it's hard for people who expect to earn a living doing this. I think that'd be difficult, but to do it as your contribution to society, and then, you know, whatever happens, happens. I had to often work a lot of side jobs to keep working for this program because I felt it was that important. So how many people? Maybe a few hundred. That's it. But it is worldwide. And I know in China, when they heard it from Dr. Panzer, they wanted him to come and live there because they felt the value, you know. And it's we would not have had an AIDS epidemic if people could have heard this program.
So Vicky's presentation, is that like a sample person, 18, or Vicky already talked to somebody, 18 years old?
18-year-old, but I didn't put her.
18.
18.
So you kind of talked to her? Told
That's
her?
nice. So you gave her, like, maybe you showed her some of the program and stuff? Great.
Mainly just, I had to make it short.
Yeah,
Short.
but it was great. And
It's
it was
wonderful,
very
yeah.
real life. I mean, that she would
Mhm.
be that honest with you, Vicky. I'm sure you have a relationship with her, you know, but you know, usually people hide their stuff, especially if they had drug abuse and all of this stuff. And just being able to share that with you is a step in a recovery program. You know, just being able, and you're not judgmental. You know, you really are interested. Why did you think this way? Why did you do? And you know, what are you doing now? Or what did you learn from that experience?
I think the one thing that helped me the most is in my last job that I had for about 10 years, I didn't speak, you know, because I was nervous. I didn't speak, but I did a lot of one-on-one because I worked for the homeless, and you had to do a lot of one-on-one counseling and talking and listening, mostly listening to those with drug abuse and alcohol abuse. So I did that for about 10 years. Just
Wow. That's a wealth of experiences, and you can bring an example. Somebody said this and then they did that, you know, to people, because it's amazing. To me, everybody's at risk. You know, we talk at-risk youth programs. No, everybody's at risk. It doesn't matter. The hardest area I've ever done is upper class suburbs. I almost kind of
I'm gonna
avoid
cut
that.
off at 7.
You know,
I
they
mean, six.
they feel like they know everything and they don't know anything, and they
Exactly.
hide things, and it's always about
In 6 minutes.
performance
Oh,
and
6 minutes, 7.
and how they appear to people. I had a guy in my class, and I could tell by the clothes, he dressed urban, he was white and making 80,000 a year, was working the financial district in New York City. I says, "What are you doing in my program?" And he says, "I got caught in Hudson County and it was heroin." He said, my parents always kept the liquor closet open. As long as you're drinking at home, go ahead and drink. And then I had parties when my parents were gone. They just said, clean it up. And they lived in a very nice place. And he said his best friend was up in his parents' master bedroom. He had 2 lines of white powder on the dresser. And he says, "What's that?" And I think the guy said he was 18 at that time. And he says, "Shut up and just take this." And he thought it was maybe cocaine. So he snorted it in his nose. It was heroin. He says, "Man, that was the best high I ever had." Got addicted right there. And sure enough, he did the program. He was really unhappy, but he just wanted to get done with the program so he could live his life. 6 months later, he's back again because he's still doing the same stupid stuff, you know? So it's yeah, and I could just see his attitude sitting there, you know, was pretty arrogant, you know? So it's sometimes people have to really hit rock bottom. Linda Flores, you had a comment or question?
Yes. I just wanted to know, when we go out to certain organizations and that don't have, high tech, like projectors and things like that. I'm sure you've probably been in that situation sometimes, Linda, in the past. What did you do?
90%.
Oh, okay. So what do you do for visuals?
Well, again, I started in the Soviet Union, which I said, just give me a blank wall and electrical outlet. And they had DC, so I blew up a projector. It wasn't AC, right? And so when I came to America, I was doing the same thing. Give me a screen or a wall. And Richard gave us screens. I says, because I had to carry these up like 5 flights of stairs, you know? And then I guess maybe after 3 years back in America, we went to PowerPoint, which was a whole thing for me to learn how to do. So I've only been with the white screen and all this stuff, the whiteboard, I would say the last 2 years. You know, I still will get an auditorium. That's why I always want to know, where am I going to speak? Do you have a screen? I need a table, an outlet. I carry my own wheel that has 20 feet of cord, you know, because I'm usually not near an outlet. And I have my own laptop. See, my stuff, because I work with the organization, they pay for the laptop. They pay for the projector. The projectors are so much cheaper than they used to be. And that's how we do. So I come prepared to do everything without, even when they say you have a whiteboard, sometimes when, you know, if you just take a USB and you stick it in their computer, the fonts are totally different. It just blows everything apart. So I really try to just use my own stuff. So but basically that's what we do.
So when you say you need a screen, so what did you used to use? That you used slides, right? And that was
Yeah,
really quite a
use
while
them.
back.
If I had a chalkboard, then we would turn the world map around so it's white on that side, and I'd project on there, which it's only 3 feet by 4 feet, but it's in a classroom, so it's okay. If I'm in an auditorium, they all have the screen that rolls down because it's an auditorium. So it's always being, that's why I always ask, what's, you know, you want me to do classroom? What do you want me to do? I would always suggest classroom. Myself, my first audiences were 650 people in Russian. And so I got used to that. I felt like, wow, this is so slow, only doing 30 kids at a time. But it's actually better because you can give more individual attention. So the high tech, it's whatever you're comfortable with, but basically you have to buy your own laptop, and you need you know, Windows or whatever. You need Microsoft with the PowerPoint, the Excel, the Word doc. So you have to kind of outfit your stuff, and then you get a projector. It's usually a box like this, and a couple $100. you know, so it's,
Oh, okay. I thought they were still $1,000.
no, thank goodness. No, they're really cheap and you could, you know, you just look for good prices, get a good name brand, you know, because it's your equipment. Usually I always buy a warranty on it. Same with my laptop. You know, if I get it from, you know, I usually get from Dell, but if I get from Staples or something, oh boy, they just took care of it right away. You know, I'd get the 2-year in-house warranty. With Dell, they would walk me through everything on the phone and stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, your equipment's everything. And then I am working on my supply list, what you need to bring with you in regards to backup and also what you need, you know, because students, I don't have a pencil, I don't have a paper. Teachers all have paper and they usually have pencils and the kids just, you know, when you're done with the presentation, everybody leaves, you'll see 15 pencils on the floor. I pick them all up and stick them in my bag. I keep them because they don't take care of anything. So I'm making a list of supplies too. It's to a minute. And even I'll tell you what kind of, basically it's just a basic laptop. You know, and sometimes the people who sell them, you tell them, I'm doing presentations. This is what we're primarily PowerPoint, but you also need Word and Excel. What would you suggest? You know, say if you're doing 2 or 3 hours a day, they know what to recommend to you without over, because you don't need all the bells and whistles.
So
You have
on
to
the,
be,
on the supply list, are you putting down like things like that that we may need to get? Simple things
yes,
like
yes, what you would need for each class and what I've learned, what I take with me. And then, you know, you get to know your area. But I found, because I had to get the attachments that would go into their equipment. That was kind of weird last year. I mean, 2 years ago before the lockdown, because I had to use a totally different hookup to get into their auditorium projector. But typically everything is just those cords. And again, the person that sells you the laptop, you know, maybe the projector and laptop together, say, you know, what do I need? How do I get them to work together? And they can help show you how to set it up. Because at first it can be a little daunting. After a while, it's just the same thing every time. So it's like changing your baby, you know? But yeah, I'll try to, it's a process, you know, it's really like an onion, you know, we do this peeling, this peeling. So it's hard for me. I'm giving you a lot, as you see with the handouts. I'm giving you a lot of background information that I learned through 30 years. And it's, you know, I'm trying to cut down on the emotional part or being unprepared and stuff. And mostly you just roll with everything. You smile, you're always on time. To me, on time means I'm walking in the building 20 minutes before I'm supposed to present. That's on time to me. I got parking, you know, I fought the traffic. I would rather be in front of the school for an hour waiting to start than rushing. There's no excuse for being late. There's just no excuse for being late. You know, so it's all a part of being professional. I joined Toastmasters for 2 years just to become a better speaker. And what I learned is I was doing everything they were teaching. So then I felt more confident. And mostly it's making that connection with people, smiling, eye-to-eye contact, you know, doing individual attention while they're walking in the room. How are you doing? What do you think of the class so far? They love to talk about that. It's shocking. And some of the kids that I think, oh man, this kid, I don't know. And they turn out to be my best kids. They're my best kids. You know, like I had these 3 guys, one had a do-rag and the other one, his pants was down to his ankles and all this stuff. And they turned out to be the most highly intelligent straight A students in the school. One guy, his mother's the security guard. So she was always poking her head in there. And the way because they were always quiet, you know, and they were so articulate and goal oriented. You know, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to run my own company. Like, you know, not NBA, NFL and all this stuff. And, you know, talking individually to people, getting to know people. How you doing? How was your week? Nobody asked them this. Do this, do that. You know, so how's your family? You know, things like that. So it's, I asked my drug rehab guys, 758 guys, what age did you start using? Almost 100% started at age 12. A common story was my parents would have a party the night before. The next day they'd say, go clean up. And the kid is like 10 and 12. So you got all these half drunk bottles and glasses, and they would pour all the alcohol into a container and drink. Can you imagine drinking that stuff? Your nose hair would light on fire. And that's how they developed a habit, you know. So it's just something, but it just
I have
takes
to go.
practice.
But one thing is, if you guys get a program started, we could do like a GoFundMe. We could use either the ACLA nonprofit or maybe Free Teens, depending on what the certification is. So that way, you know, you'd be surprised how many people would like to help you. So don't let the funding like be your main limiting factor. If you have a place you want to go with this, be it churches or a school or youth group or drug recovery, whatever, wherever you feel called to do, and you need $1,000 or $500 worth of materials, then we can start a GoFundMe campaign. As long as there's a nonprofit, people are much more confident and they'll donate the money.
Right.
I think we can get the money.
Yeah.
But I have to go. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I'm sorry, it's been really busy, but
It's
thank
okay,
you.
we understand. There's always the video. I have to watch the video. But does anybody else have any other questions? I really sincerely, Carol and Vicky, totally two different spins on this assignment. And I'm honestly very impressed. You just blew my mind. I was really happy. And Vicky, I was just happy you were doing it because I know that you maybe have a little doubt or whatever, but you nailed it, girl. You nailed it. So I think all those previous experiences talking to people, you know, maybe that helped. I don't know. But, anybody else comments or anything? So yeah, so I know Dr. Panzer said spend a lot of time on the curriculum, so maybe I'll talk about some lessons, or this might be good because there's so many lessons here. If there's some lessons that you're curious about, or you would like to see how it was done, and I will just do the lesson. I will assume you read the teacher's manual, which is the summary outline, and then I'd like to see this lesson done, this lesson. And again, I've never worked with this book at all. I just have the presentation experience, but I'll figure it out. And then you guys can give suggestions. Well, what about this? What if we do this and stuff like that? So yeah, and as far as, you know, I do a lot of stuff with USBs, like the facility had the laptop, they had the projector, they had everything. And so I said, well, can I come, you know, some other time and put my USB and just see how it works there? Because again, it's the font sometimes changes and does weird things. And if everything seems to work good, I also have a clicker, like you can tap your laptop and move it ahead, but I have, it's a clicker. Now they're much more expensive than they used to be. I used to get them for $20 because I lost them all the time. But I don't think I have one here, but that's a good thing, you know, and check Amazon, check all those other places. But it's nice because it's got a red light, some of them, where you can use that pointer when it's far apart. So you want to highlight something like a map or something, or a phrase, you know, you're doing that. And then each time you hit it, it advances, or you hit the other area. It's like your remote on your TV. Hit the other area. Oh, Miss Linda, I didn't see that other slide, you know, and then you can go back and forth. And, you know, give the program to your dog, give it to your canary, you know, and they'll love you anyway.
But one thing that, this was prior to COVID, but there were some cases where there was no way to, you know, no projector, no nothing. So then we had packets of the PowerPoint. presentation that we would give out on paper.
Mm.
But now with COVID, I don't know, how that would go over.
Well, a lot of people have the classroom, Google Class, and you could actually go to the teachers. She does it in her classroom because most of them have to come to work nowadays. You come to her class, she has everything hooked up. You do the PowerPoint from her laptop, and you just say, I have this PowerPoint presentation. How can we do it? And because my daughters are both math and science teachers, and that's what they did. Nobody told them how to do, they had to figure out everything, but Google Class is what everybody seems to be using these days. And it's like a Zoom meeting like this, but they've got all of their children there. And then you can always tell the ones that closed their picture and walked away, because then when the class is over, you got like 10 kids still there because they're out playing ball or something. The teacher doesn't know until it's test time. So yeah, so the PowerPoint pictures are great, and we just have to figure out, because every state is different now. And then again, it depends on the venue, maybe houses of worship. I always think those are a great place to start,
Right.
and again, always know your place. Some people ask, what about talking about God and religion? Well, if that's your venue, yeah, you don't want to exclude anybody. So especially if they bring it up, say, well, how do you feel about that? And I just haven't had, just a lot of kids will say, oh, good, because my church tells me I should abstain from sex until marriage. And the other thing is, we do not call it an abstinence program, because people will say boring. It's sexual risk avoidance. That's like, I got that initials after my name, SRAS. I'm a sexual risk avoidance specialist. I had to get certified every 2 years. Sexual risk avoidance. And it's also not just sexual, it's emotional, psychological risk avoidance. So that's what we do. Yes, Carol.
Where do you get certified?
Through the Ascend, ASCEND. If you ask Dr. Panzer what would be involved with getting certified, and they give you a wealth of information. Boy, do they get into the psychology. I sent you all some tips. It's called, it was a very colorful email tip sheet, promoting personal responsibility in youth programs. I sent you this. This is an email I got today. So I thought, oh, great, I'll send it to you guys. And I also sent you, this is a form, a roster. And the student, like when you have the little squares here, I put the date and then the check mark next to their name if they attended, or I'll leave them all blank unless they're absent, then I'll put an A for absence. Usually I give that to the teacher. I says, would you fill this out? But the first and second day that I teach them, I ask them, please print your name first and last so I can read it. And then their age, and then ethnicity, B for Black, W for white, H for Hispanic, A for Asian, O for other, and M for mixed. So a lot of times I'll say O for awesome. They don't know. O for awesome, because you just don't know what you are, And then male and female, usually everybody's compliant with male and female. But if they say, well, Miss Linda, I'm this, I'm that, say, well, you don't have to put anything if you don't want. And if people say, well, Miss Linda, you're not being inclusive, there's over 50 gender identifications recognized by United Nations. I'm not going to have all 50 of them there. They want to write down what they are. It's okay with me. It's just that because of grants and different things, they want to make sure that we're speaking to many ethnicities. They want to make sure we're speaking not just to guys and not just to girls and stuff like that. So I keep everything fluid, say, put down whatever you want. It's okay. I just need your name and ideally your ethnicity. And I said, whatever you're feeling the most today. My daughter, she always says she's Black. And I go, yeah, you're white. She said, no, I'm Black. I go, okay, whatever. So yeah, anyway, so the roster I sent you today, and that, yeah. So I would suggest, again, I know everybody's busy, but just carve, 30 minutes a day, read read through the curriculum book and the course correlating teacher's manual, which is that summary outline. And then you get kind of an idea, and eventually it kind of all fits together. Again, can you see, you don't have to have all the answers. The program gives them the answers they're looking for. And then you just need to, you know, and again, all the answers I ever give are right there in the program. So I will send you, if I didn't already, because I know I sent to Vicki and Carol part 5, which is that, like, it's what's pulling your train, you know, your emotions, or your positive things, or your negative, you know, how you deal with handling your emotions. So, and also gives it, I think it still talks about porn in a more detailed way too. So that's kind of good. But yeah, so that's, if you can help me out for next week, shoot me off an email about a lesson that you would like me to do, or even that you have a question about, and we'll just see, and I'll kind of just zip through them, give you an idea. Any other questions, or everybody's okay? Okay, and as you know, I'm just an email away. Vicki, do I get back to you pretty quick?
Oh, very, thank you.
Carol, did I get back to you pretty quick? And I'm not on my email all the time. I just try to check it wherever I am. So, and I'm real good with texting. If you're not getting an answer within an hour from me for an email, just shoot me a text. You know, texting, I'm usually crazy. Okay, well, thank you very much. You guys all did a tremendous job. Yes, Richiko-san.
Sorry, I didn't really read it, the email so long time. So you're talking about books and stuff. I actually real book, or you're sending by email?
Email. And then there are 2 books that I'm still waiting for. The original relationship intelligence book that Richard wrote before he did all the curriculum and slides and everything. And then the other one is Preventing Violence, which both he wrote a little while ago, but that I'm waiting for. I did do my mailing yesterday, finally. You know, I'm sorry, my day, every day is like running a race track, you know, but Richiko-san, I sent yours. People asked for labels. You got labels in the mail. Linda, you got labels in the mail. And then anything else you need that I forgot or whatever, and or if you say, I don't really have a printer and there was something I emailed you, tell me what it is, or send that email back to me. Can you print these? I'll mail them to you. No charge. You know, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. So everybody should get their, it's almost a package, but it's an envelope. I would say you might get it by Saturday, I would think, Friday or Saturday, because I did it yesterday morning. And Takia-san, I'm finally sending yours. I don't know what happened to yours. It disappeared.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so I think everybody here got something except Gideon and Emerald, because you guys already get stuff. But if there's something you need, you let me know. Okay, so have a wonderful rest of the week. And again, I really applaud everybody. This is beyond what I could ever expect or hope. It's only the beginning. So have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.